Witamy na kolejnej sesji. Sesja tym razem to prezentacja strategii.
Presentation of the strategy of private entities. Ladies and gentlemen, last year and during previous conferences, we had a presentation of Polish champions. We decided that this year it was worthwhile getting to know about the strategy of some other entities. Although one of the champions, the Lotos Group, will also have its presentation later in the day. The summary of a strategic talk will involve the representatives of the Ministry of Climate. I would like to add one more thing, ladies and gentlemen. You'll have a chance to listen to two presentations of companies who were the first to announce their hydrogen strategies. Polenergia was the first one, and the Sesko Group, whose presentation we are going to see a moment ago, with Mr. Sławomir Halbryt being the president of the company, announced it as the other company, the second one. But we are still waiting for the strategies of our champions. But maybe the ministry will share a secret, but it is not the ministry that creates the strategy. Oh, but it did get the draft. But we are talking about the Polish hydrogen strategy, okay. And I've been talking about the strategy of the Polish champions. No, then it will take some time, probably. Ladies and gentlemen, in this case, we would like to invite you to a very important presentation that will be presented by Sławomir Halbryt from Seskom S.A.
Good afternoon. It's a great honor for me to be able to tell you about the hydrogen strategy of the Seskom S.A. Group, because this is the fourth edition of the conference on hydrogen technologies, and I've had the great pleasure of participating in all four of them, the pleasure of talking to you, of presenting our capabilities, our achievements when it came to hydrogen technology. Ladies and gentlemen, Seskom S.A. has been on the market for a number of years, and for 12 years or so. That is briefly after starting our activity. We've started first technologies connected with hydrogen technologies. Today, we have a number of patents connected with equipment for hydrogen production, electrolyzers, and also those for production of heat, that is hydrogen boilers. These are 4 patents, which in this period of a decade or so have been growing in our heads. We're building a team working on our prototypes. For many of years, we hadn't had a lot of support on the Polish market. We did see what was happening in Europe, through the world, in Asia. But it was difficult to talk about hydrogen technologies until the hydrogen technology cluster was created, until interest on part of the EU appeared, and its very strong impact on zero emission in the EU industry. And then it turned out that our hydrogen program that we had started to define for concrete goals started to take on very interesting, very concrete form. Our solutions go in the directions, they're amid the stream of all the policies that are being shaped currently in the EU, and we also know that such policies are being created in Poland as well, perhaps with a certainly different dynamic and character. Nevertheless, these processes are in harmony with each other. The Seskom Group is a group which deals with a number of business activities, including hydrogen technologies. So the entire hydrogen program has been packed by us and moved into a new target company, SES Hydrogen. This company will concentrate first and foremost on 3 basic areas. First of all, green electricity, the green hydrogen fuel, and green heat energy. These are the 3 areas which are directly connected with our technologies, that is electrolyzers and hydrogen boiler. The role that is played by hydrogen in balancing the future energy system is an open question today. We know that there are many technological elements to be solved. Nevertheless, already today we are able, on the basis of what's already available among the members of the conference, when very often on a less formal basis, we talk with various producers or suppliers of components for the infrastructure. But this comprehensive look at the production of green energy, being green electricity or green heat or green hydrogen, this means concentration on the infrastructure in our hydrogen strategy, in our strategy of development of hydrogen technology. We've assumed that aside from components which we see in our technological portfolios, electrolyzers and boilers, we also need hydrogen hubs. That is the entire infrastructure which allows customers to use hydrogen. We are aware of the fact that model of financing investments into such infrastructures are going to change. The means which are going to be assigned to investments will not be meant for only production of electrolyzers or boiler or compressor or energy storage or any other component of such infrastructure. Today we have to say that such clients as local governments, counties, cities, entrepreneurs, owners of truck fleets, forklifts, of communal equipment such as garbage trucks, etc., will need not electrolyzers and boilers, but they will need green electricity, green hydrogen, green heat. So, in connection with that, our strategy includes hydrogen hub. In other words, an element of constructing an infrastructure which will provide our clients with what they need. We want to equip our hubs with our own technology. We believe that this technology will allow for increasing profitability by lower energy consumption connected with hydrogen production. We're in a continuous process of verification of technologies. This technological race has also been noticed by our Polish academia. The Technical University of Gdańsk, we cooperate with Gdańsk University of Technology, has given us many interesting solutions, making our equipment more effective, more attractive. We're able to lower the energy use indicator per production of 1 kilogram of hydrogen, for example. So we expect that the initial first installations are going to be designed and implemented on the Polish market. They are going to be installations in which we are also going to use our own solutions. So very briefly, I would like to present to you the products that we offer. This is our electrolyzer. This is a prototype of low power. This is the prototype that we research all these concepts connected with improving the effectiveness of the work on. These devices will also consider the basis for certifications to be allowed on the Polish market. Here we also have issues connected with conditions of allowing such equipment on the Polish market. This is not entirely clear. We are using here the standards, the norms proposed in European documents. Hydrogen boiler, the version you can see has several kilowatts in power. Currently, we're working on a device of 500 kilowatts. It's half megawatts. It will burn clean hydrogen and provide heat in cooperation, co-working with gas boilers. It's going to be a hybrid solution, which on one hand will allow to use gas and will provide additional heat by using hydrogen. We do hope that such installations will allow us to educate energy operators, so to speak, to encourage them to move towards greater involvement and greater share of hydrogen in the entire energy mix connected with heat. That's all from me. As far as very brief very quick presentation of what SESCOM deals with. I'd like you to remember, to keep in mind that we are a producer. We are going to be a manufacturer of electrolyzers, which we're going to supply on the Polish market, also abroad, hopefully. We will produce hydrogen boilers, devices which will provide hydrogen from green hydrogen, zero emission-wise, absolute zero emissions. And as a result of our technological works, our R&D works, we will offer customers green hydrogen infrastructure in very interesting financial models, infrastructure that will provide them with hydrogen, heat, and electricity. Thank you very much. Thank you. I'm sorry, but perhaps you could stay with us, Sławek. Sławek is a co-creator of our conference, so he should be clearly said that he's an initiator of many hydrogen initiatives. But two things need to be emphasized. Right at the beginning, the Marshal of the Pomorskie Voivodeship, Mr. Struk, said that Pomorskie is moving towards hydrogen, that it's inevitable, that we are going to specialize in it. But I'm not sure if you know, but in front of you have the chairman of a company which is present on the Warsaw Stock Exchange. The strategies, the words of strategies that we've heard just a minute ago, they're of key importance because, as you know, each company needs to inform its shareholders about its plans and so on. So the declarations we've heard are very significant. These are the first declarations of the sort which are mentioned in Poland, that a Polish company is going to provide electrolyzers, not just Poland, but also throughout Europe. We'll have a producer of zero-emission boilers. This really has to be appreciated because in Poland, we hear a lot of talk, we hear a lot of declarations, many letters of intentions are signed, but the responsibility for the words that Sławomir has taken upon himself is tremendous. And I do think you deserve a big round of applause for that, because what you've done in the last few years, the team, because, well, had the pleasure of observing these works, we are just on the eve of a great revolution. Thank you very much. Thank you for these kind words. It's really encouraging, really motivational. Thank you very much. Definitely, but we shouldn't forget about other entities that want to be present in this market. So at this point, I'd like to ask Polenergia to present its hydrogen strategy. I'd like to invite Mrs. Iwona Sierżęga, the chairwoman of the board. Hey, good afternoon. Am I heard loud and clear? Yes. Okay, great. Once again, good afternoon. I represent the management of Polenergia SA. I have the pleasure to tell you a few words about hydrogen strategy of Polenergia. I've divided my presentation into 4 parts. I'll tell you a few words about the strategy which has been mentioned, which was announced last year in May, containing hydrogen elements. Then I'll concentrate on the value chain and the place of Polenergia in it. I'll present the projects we are implementing, developing. Perhaps I'll mention some we are conducting, and maybe a few more words about hydrogen Polenergia. So, ladies and gentlemen, definitely last year in May, during lockdown, Polenergia announced a 5-year development strategy, an active development strategy dealing with all the elements of our energy group. This strategy is based first and foremost on the development of sustainable investments. We built our business based on green energy sources, and in this way we want to provide our customers with what we call the energy of the future. This entire system of green solutions based on green, clean, renewable energy, not just electric energy, but also servicing various services connected with it, so electromobility and hydrogen, which in the future is going to be an energy carrier and a fuel, and also an electrolyzer as energy storage balancing the system. So on the slide, I would like to show you a fragment of our strategy from last year, where in red I've marked those elements which were not present in German strategy. We've announced we are talking here about the development of hydrogen projects very clearly. Generally, Polenergia has very high ambitions. Up to this point, as a relatively medium-sized entity acting locally here, but we have the potential to become a large, significant group integrated with large growth potential, and we're doing everything to have it this way, so that things can go this way. Of course, bearing in mind social responsibility of business, we are taking the sustainable way of development. Please take a look at our business segments in R&D, in operations and development. Of course, RAS dominate. Gas generation, I'm 16 megawatts, not that much in photovoltaics, but in the second column you can see a huge growth potential, mostly offshore. This is 3,000 megawatts along with our Norwegian partner. You probably know that two projects, 1,044 megawatts. These are projects which will receive support from the Polish government. Then we have land to wind energy, as currently we're building 3 wind farms, 233 megawatts. Also photovoltaics is developing very intensively. Soon we will add more projects to the operational activity. And I've mentioned hydrogen. 100 megawatts is the project which is in the initial phase of development, and we're also adding hydrogen to it. It's also worthwhile to mention distribution and sales. All these elements are very important. All these elements will play a role in the development of hydrogen. The value chain, hydrogen value chain. Now, how do we see it? As it was already underlined, we see ourselves as a manufacturer, as a producer of green energy. It's very important to produce hydrogen in this context, of course, to have our own green energy and to be able to optimize this energy either from photovoltaic or wind energy to produce hydrogen cleanly. So this is our place in this chain using RES and electrolysis of water. In this process, we want to produce sustainable, clean hydrogen. Where do we want to provide the energy to? Mostly industry and transport. European strategies speak about that too, but we also put emphasis on the energy sector and heat production, because in our gas power plant we want to develop co-burning of hydrogen along with natural gas. Of course, it would be a difficult challenge without partnerships, since it's a very new subject. We still don't have our own technology. We base on existing technologies. So we're talking both with Polish companies and foreign ones. Equinor, as you well know, is an offshore partner. In the future, hydrogen will play a role there too. Siemens Energy is a partner for hydrogen development, using their electrolyzers. We want to build an industrial-sized hydrogen project. Thomas Energy is a Norwegian company that is active in our gas sector as well. So this company creates a large group of signatories working on hydrogen technologies for gasoline turbines. So we are very active there too. I should also mention Polish academia. We've been cooperating with the Warsaw Polytechnic here, also the Rzeszów Polytechnic or the university there are very close to us. We also cooperate with the Gdańsk University of Technology. As you know, we are present in Hydrogen Europe, and we work together. We lobby for supporting European Energy Alliance. And now I'll move from north to south, and I'll mention that we participate in the Carpathian Hydrogen Valley, which was initiated this year in May. We have our gas sector there. We are also building a hydrogen hub. Projects. The most important one is the big project of about 100 megawatts. Probably it will be located in Upper Silesia. It's going to be a hydrogen plant made of Siemens electrolyzers. These are industrial-sized electrolyzers over 17 megawatts each. The energy that will supply them is our energy from photovoltaic and wind energy, a mix to use this potential. And we want to sell hydrogen on site for transport, for industry. We also have the possibility of replicating such solutions in other places, which we see as important for hydrogen. The Carpathian region is very important. As I've mentioned, we can basically transplant such a plant in the same shape to another location. Another place, another location we're thinking about is the north. That's offshore farms. The 100 megawatts hydrogen plant that we're developing is quite significant because right from the beginning, right after strategy was announced, right away we've conducted an initial feasibility study. These parameters that you can see, they come from this initial study. This gave us also the confidence to participate in the important project of Common European Interest initiative. We were among the 9 Polish entities which qualified through the Polish path of the program. And now we are going through the European path. We are finishing our application. So hopefully we are going to be a project approved by the European Commission. This hopefully will guarantee these projects various kinds of support so that these projects can be carried out. A few words about the parameters. A lot of energy, a lot of green energy is needed. As you can see, a lot of gigawatts, 50 to 80% of capability. A lot of hydrogen is needed, as you can see, so we are looking for customers. We've started to realize this project. We conducted a feasibility study last year. At this point, we are conducting a very advanced feasibility study, which has been taking place for a number of months. It's going to be ready quite soon. Hopefully, the installation will be ready by 2016. Of course, it all depends on Polish legislation and what sort of support mechanisms will appear. Because CAPEX is large and OPEX, as you well know, is quite significant. The biggest part there is taken up by the electric energy, but also various payments connected with electrical energy. Nowa Starzyna, it's a town in Podkarpacie region. We see this location as another place for hydrogen aspiration. We have our 16 megawatt gas unit. It's connected with the Carpathian Valley project. Each hydrogen valley project has its own specific character. This Carpathian one is specific because quite close to each other we have gas plants, gas-powered plants close to each other. So one might imagine that in the future it can potentially become hydrogen. In some of our locations, we're already going to introduce modernized turbines to burn about 10% of hydrogen by volume. We have huge aspirations here. We want to cooperate for the development of hydrogen economy, storage of hydrogen, and hydrogen fuel. We also have the Rzeszów Aviation Valley, which will definitely need hydrogen as well. So I'll just show what Nowa Strzyżna looks like. We're in the first phase of introducing hydrogen to gas turbines. The second phase will be carried out in the time perspective of 2026. We will aim at burning up to 25% of hydrogen. And in the third phase, these turbines hopefully will run completely on hydrogen. I haven't mentioned the north. I've only mentioned it. It's not the time yet. But we can't talk about hydrogen without offshore. So our offshore projects are definitely going to be connected with hydrogen. When I'll have more information, I'll be happy to tell you more about our updated plans. So summing up, we've announced our strategy also as a company active on stock exchange. We are convinced we can stick to the strategy. We see our place in the hydrogen chain as a producer of green hydrogen for other sectors. We are developing projects. So far, we're two concrete ones. The big project of the plant. So we do hope this is going to be the nucleus for scaling up these projects in Poland and Europe. The second is the electro plant in Nowa Strzyżna, where we want to introduce hydrogen, and we're open to various kinds of cooperation. We value this local content, and we are looking for it in Poland as well. We know that the signage of the hydrogen contract is going to take place next week, so we're happy to see it. We're going to be at that event, and we value the fact that local contact is there. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. An impressive strategy. For me, when I hear that somebody wishes to build 100 megawatts in electrolyzers, knowing that in Poland we have little to none, it is quite an ambitious task, but I will certainly keep my fingers crossed. And it will all depend probably on the Polish hydrogen strategy and on the policy of our government. For now, I would like to ask Director Ewa Mazur from the Ministry of Climate to present a summary concerning the stage of preparations of the Polish hydrogen strategy, as well as the agreement that we are awaiting. Thank you very much. My name is Ewa Mazur. I'm the head of the Hydrogen Economy and Innovation Department. Unfortunately, the director of the department could not be with you today owing to his prior obligations. He has to accompany the minister. I would like to invite you, thank you for the invitation of the representation of the ministry to participate in this session. It is absolutely crucial that the companies develop their own strategies and that they do not passively await the national strategy. I think that this is a fantastic sign that proves your readiness and also shows the visionary quality of your activities and also the conviction that certain transformation towards hydrogen in certain sectors of the economy has to occur, has to happen. I would like to thank the organizers as well for the brilliant idea of setting up this particular panel in which we can learn about the strategy of the companies that might not necessarily be the biggest champions, but as regards us, the ministry, when the entire ministry was reorganized last year, a department was established devoted to hydrogen economy. Within it, our team, and ever since we were established, we've been doing everything so as to support the development of hydrogen economy and provide incentives for its acceleration. The major project is the one of the Polish hydrogen strategy. So referring to the first question that you posed, I can share information with you to the effect that the project of the strategy was adopted by the Permanent Committee of the Council of Ministers on the 27th of September. So what is ahead are two last stages: consultations within the Joint Commission of the government and self-governments and the Council of Ministers. So that means that we are really nearing the finishing line in terms of the strategy. The works on compiling it have lasted even longer than this sub-department has existed for, because it was even our colleagues who worked within the former structures that laid foundations for our further work on the strategy itself. This year, we've been through a number of consultation rounds, including 2 rounds of open public social consultations. I remember that it was already a year ago, and during the previous edition of the conference, I mentioned the strategy. We were at a far less advanced stage back then. But I think what is worth for you to know is the fact that there has been a number of comments to the strategy submitted, and the number of entities that were interested in issuing their opinion on it was something that we found really impressive. It was something that was absolutely positive, that gave us a lot of hope for this document and for this area to be the one that is really of interest, of actual interest to the market. We have collected more comments, voices, contributions than probably any other important governmental document. We had over 2,000 different remarks or comments. So the material for reflections was really abundant. So now we are waiting the last opinion and the Council of Ministers to accept the document, to adopt it. So we are very hopeful. Now, as regards the topic that you've already referred to, and the second question that the moderator posed, that is the one concerning hydrogen agreement. It is yet another initiative that we've been proceeding with for the last year. And this is an initiative whose scope and the response to it and impact to which surprised us here at the ministry. And it surprised us really positively, because within our works on the hydrogen agreement, we have managed to include the market, or actually the market decided to get involved itself. But there were over 165 or even 170 entities that joined in. Mostly these were enterprises, but also representatives of science, universities, financing institutions, insurance institutions, public administration. So it is in a week's time that the agreement is going to be concluded. There were 7 different working groups that contribute to this success. And there were 600 experts that issued their opinion on it. The entire process started on the 7th of July last year with the signing of a letter of intent concerning the hydrogen agreement. And the form of cooperation itself is something new to the public administration. This form in itself shows that we here at the ministry are willing to create this new market. And we want to do that in close cooperation with the representatives of the market, science. We really want to get to know the market and the market to get to know about us. And this partnership has resulted in the greatest value added, in that we have had a chance to learn about the status quo, which is really important for the business cycle, to see who does what can be done with whom, and what potentially can be done by the government or broadly understood public administration. So next week, we are concluding the agreement, whose preparation has taken a lot of effort. That President Tomasz Pelc, who is with you here in the room as a coordinator of one of the working groups, knows really well how interesting an experience it was, and also how much effort it took. So it appears that we are nearing the end of something, but what actually, when this agreement comes into force, will only begin. We will establish particular forms of cooperation. We will define particular activities on the basis of which we will move on. The foundation for which was laid when we signed a letter of intent, the letter of intent last year. So there is even more work ahead. In a different format, we will not overuse the energy of the persons who pro bono for over a year have really put a lot of effort into making this happen. Still, this broad database of knowledge, context, and energy is something that we are going to benefit from. And me, as the head of the department and regulatory lawyer myself, I'm really excited. And I know it all too well that without such support and involvement of such a numerous group of experts, it would be difficult to proceed. I'm very happy about their involvement in the process. When the strategy has been adopted, this energy is going to be really useful to operationalize legislation. But first, we will have to decide on the basis for the functioning of the market, because legislation is actually the very last stretch, the very last step, and good law requires, first and foremost, good knowledge, solid knowledge, people with strategy, vision, but also money. So the resources, supporting mechanisms will have to be specified, and of course we here in the ministry will take care of giving it the right form. The agreement itself plus the working groups. The agreement involves a few strategic objectives. The first one, and the superior one, is to maximize the Polish contribution, or local content, as you might also call it, into the Polish hydrogen economy. Apart from it, in the agreement, It has been envisaged and established by all the stakeholders a list of particular activities in a few areas. First of all, apart from the local content concerning R&D,
co istotne, te działania są
what is
skierowane ku
important is
temu,
that
aby
these
skutecznie
measures
wzmacniać krajowe zdolności prowadzenia badań,
are
przede
to be
wszystkim
performed in
wzmacniać
order
potencjał
to increase
komercjalizacji.
the potential of the commercialization of
Celem
R&D activities. Another goal
są oczywiście wspieranie
is, of
inwestycji.
course, supporting
Tutaj
investments.
jest szeroki katalog pomysłów, jaki
There
przede
is a
wszystkim
broad catalogue of ideas here and plans.
dotykają przede wszystkim przedsiębiorstwa.
These are the plans defined by
Trzeba również
enterprises
działań po stronie regulacyjnej, aby odblokować
who also expect some regulatory activities that will help to streamline the operations of enterprises. So development, investments, and thirdly, also the creation of new professions, specialization, education that follows, and also campaigns, both education and social campaigns,
wprowadzenie kwestii
will have to be realized. So the promotion activities, bringing the issues related to hydrogen are expected. So they will, of course, be also directed to, for example, technological universities. In the previous panel, we've heard about the idea of implementation PhDs. So,
Szczerze wyglądam, burzę się.
so I cannot really express how excited I am, and I look forward to this cooperation. I should not prolong this contribution. Should you have any questions concerning the strategy or the agreement, please do not hesitate to contact us. I think the time has come to give the floor to the companies. That is the panel devoted to their strategies. So once again, congratulations on not only the designing the strategies, but also I keep my fingers crossed for their implementation. Thank you very much. Thank you, and I would have a question right away, because I don't think we know it precisely. What is most important for the right implementation of technologies in the Polish should be the complete hydrogen law. What does the strategy say about it, and what activities does your department plan? Well, the strategy says that it is necessary to regulate the market, and it also considers the catalogue of acts that will have to be amended.
My przychylamy się w kierunku przygotowania ustawy prawo-wodorowe.
We are for the creation of the Hydrogen Law Act, and we also carry out conceptual work, because first we need to have idea solutions. We need to know how things are supposed to work before we start drafting any kind of articles, items of legislative acts. So what we do is carrying out those works, and we are also in touch with our permanent representation in Brussels, and on our own, we also participate in the process of shaping the EU law in this respect. The Polish hydrogen law undoubtedly will be closely connected with European regulations. This is our duty, right, to implement the European law after all. And the issue of the European legislation being shaped is something that can both support us here at the national level and mobilize us to accelerate our work. On the other hand, it might also slow us down. It all depends on when we complete the EU negotiations. Some of legislative packets within Fit for 55 involve hydrogen, but the most important legislative proposals concerning hydrogen are going to be published by the Commission in the last quarter of this year. And between the publication and coming into force, the document undergoes a number of steps. So summing up, the sooner the EU law is adopted, the sooner we'll be able to adopt the hydrogen law. If negotiations proceed slowly, we might want to adopt our national law even before we have any implementation obligations imposed by the EU. Well, I think that's sad that we need to have the full European law in the first place. But if our hydrogen strategy has a catalogue of some acts to be amended, what we can do, perhaps, is to approach it individually and simply adopt them one by one. Well, we could. Then we would have hydrogen law regulated in such a way that we would amend those acts that are in force, and hydrogen regulations would be dispersed across the legal system. We get more and more voices for preparing a single act, and drafting it takes really a lot of work. Wouldn't it be easier to collect the amended acts and turn them into a single one? Because the investments are waiting. I mean, they are not waiting. The investments are in the pipeline, and we need to act on a daily basis. So it might be the direction to approach. Well, absolutely. Absolutely. At this point, well, I understand that you would like to know the details of the acts that we are working on. I have the impression that you would like me to give you some more details. So at this point, we are working on the regulations concerning the amendments of the Act on RES. This is what we are concentrating on at the moment. Thank you very much. Now, given that we have the presidents of the private-owned companies here and you as a representative of public administration, I would like to ask Iwona Sierżęga first what private entities expect and what they would like to find in the Polish hydrogen strategy. What kind of support would private entities expect on the part of the government? Iwona. Thank you very much for this question. Well, for me, this legislative hydrogen package is also very important. Well, the dream solution would be a complex package, but probably that would take a lot of time, as we've heard from the ministry. So maybe it is better to just plunge into the four acts, like the energy one or the one on RES, or the act on electromobility, alternative fuels, and introduce amendments then, because actually, yes, the investments are waiting, and the investment process will be facilitated once hydrogen has been defined in different places. So I think that it might be a quicker path. That's the legislative package. Another thing is that we need to keep on talking about supporting renewable energy sources, because the more RES we build, the more hydrogen options we open. Of course, offshore is a different thing. There will be a lot of energy there. But I think that we need to keep talking about wind on land, about the barriers that have been created that hinder the development of the wind on land. We know that changes have been proceeded to the 10H Act, and it is important to somehow alleviate those barriers. And I think that what can be promoted are some hybrid solutions, perhaps. For example, combining RES system with an electrolyzer, so a complex support for such a source could be provided, so that such a source can produce hydrogen. Another solution could be another hybrid solution. For example, with the existing wind farms, what you could do is add photovoltaics at the same area. You wouldn't have to increase any capacity then, but it would be a solution that could facilitate the development of the market. Of course, we are in this fledgling state, so all those topics that can help us carry out the tests could be implemented. You might have heard about some regulations, some support for particular locations or projects. Maybe some solutions could be tested involving a single entity or a small group of entities, so that later on you can scale it up so that it covers a larger group. Such processes are run. I know, for example, that they are run in the UK or in the Netherlands. Certainly, what is important, all those support funds that have emerged. I'm talking about the IPCEI, but also the Polish Developmental Fund, the Transformation Strategy or Innovation Fund. All this is really important, and when the companies will try to collect their capex will be important. But there is a gap between the gray and green hydrogen. So what we need is a systemic support. So it can be a contract for differences, something that has been introduced concerning RES. So we could start with RES in the first place so that we can get some support and later on to lead to this stage of commercialization of the solutions. Of course, we should balance here demand and supply. There might be some obligation on the purchasing side. Those who use hydrogen as a raw material maybe should have some imposed percentage of green hydrogen that they should use, 1% perhaps to begin with, and then more in the years to come, or similar solutions. Well, we have a bunch of ideas that we eagerly would share with you, and that would be really important. The systemic support that could just push things forward. Mr. President, we've heard the entire catalogue of ideas from Madam President. Well, of course, she already uttered a number of ideas that I could subscribe to. But the listed companies, the capital companies, including the listed ones, in order to implement risky projects, those concerning new technologies, will need capital. Our conversations, our talks with investors clearly show that the greatest risk about investing in hydrogen technologies is in the regulations. If there are no regulations, or if these regulations are not clearly supporting investments, then there is a snag. I mean, we have particular concrete goals to attain. So I agree with Ms. Eva Mazur that they have to be well thought over, but we cannot afford to await them for too long a time, because as has been mentioned, the business is, has come to a halt waiting. And it could accelerate, I could accelerate my business processes if it was only possible regulatory-wise. One of the ideas that I did not find in the catalogue that we've just heard from Madam President here would be, for example, some periodical or maybe some more longer-term lowering or lifting distribution fees or transmission fees for green energy, because that is something that would support the possibility of purchasing the green energy, which would in turn be something that would boost the entire RES economy, and in particular, it would support the development of hydrogen technologies, because we could actually make use of this green electricity that appears here and there in various places, and we could adjust those location of hydrogen generation to the receiver and not to the place where energy is generated in. And I think that the recipient's location will determine the sense of using hydrogen. We all know that transmitting hydrogen is not something that really pays off, and it is reflected in the price of hydrogen. So certainly this catalogue of solutions could be extended, but the greatest risk for business today is lack of regulations, supporting regulations. So, Madam Director, what would you respond to that, Eva? Well, we are getting down to business, and this is what we've already done. And I can only once again emphasize that, of course, we do whatever we can in our capacity, and we hope that soon we'll be able to share our assumptions to the act that we've been working on, because it is those assumptions, not the rules, that will require a number of consultations, and then the legislators will take care of the act itself. But we are working on the assumptions, and I certainly hope that we will be able to collect ideas from the market. Thank you very much for this catalogue. Please do imagine that we have been working on it all, considering it all. which is also hard on so many different levels.
Tak, cóż, mam nadzieję, że
So yeah, well, I hope that soon we will be able to share the results of our work with you. And well, first of all, the Council of Ministers has to adopt the strategy. Thank you very much. Eva, we are very happy that once again, when we talk about renewable energy, we think hydrogen, and the other way around. When we think hydrogen, we think renewable energy. But the summary of this discussion, what you've been talking about is this regulatory umbrella that is necessary for hydrogen investments to be implemented in Poland. But the real result, showing that the procedures are effective, is when a voluntary fireman will be trained to approach hydrogen installation, to hydrogen car. It is only then that we will be able to say that the hydrogen law has turned effective. Today we talk about the umbrella regulations, but if hydrogen is supposed to hit the households, then this voluntary fireman is the key element of the whole system.